So some of you have spoken to me about the difficulty to enter into poetry. Like, I don't get it. And I was that way, and was that way for a long time. Poetry was just like words that rhymed, and if it didn't rhyme, it wasn't poetry, and that's how you knew poetry. So I held that opinion a really long time, in that position a really long time, until at one of these conferences, one of the leaders read this particular poem that I'm about to read, and a line in it cracked me open. It literally, I felt cracked open at the end of it. And it gave me an entryway into all poetry. So that's why I love this particular poem. It's by William Stafford. It's called A Ritual to Read to Each Other. If you don't know the kind of person I am, and I don't know the kind of person you are, a pattern that others have made will prevail in the world. And following the wrong God home, we will miss our star. For there is many a small betrayal in the mind, a shrug that lets the fragile sequence break, sending with shouts the horrible errors of childhood storming out to play through the broken dike. And as elephants parade, holding each elephant's tail, but if one wanders, the circus won't find the park. I call it cruel, and maybe the root of all cruelty, to know what occurs but not recognize the fact. So I appeal to a voice, to something shadowy, a remote, important region in all who talk. Though we could fool each other, we should consider, lest the parade of our mutual life get lost in the dark. For it is important that awake people be awake, or a breaking line may discourage them back to sleep. The signals we give, yes or no or maybe, should be clear. The darkness around us is deep. So, William Stafford. And we felt that in the room. We're talking about the magnitude of the darkness that we feel, the lies and the betrayals and the condition of the world that we see. We see it. And once you see it clearly, that darkness can take you and consume you. And your job is to remain that spark. Your job is to remain that light. Though we could lie, though we could fool each other, we should consider.
I heard somebody, this mic, the headline, somebody's going to change that real quick.
Well, meanwhile, you can use this one.
Hey. This is Antonio Machado from the book Times Alone, translations by Robert Bly. Antonio Machado says, I have walked along many roads and open paths through brush. I've sailed on 100 seas and tied up on 100 shores. And everywhere I've gone, I've seen excursions of sadness, angry and melancholy drunkards with black shadows, and academics in their offstage clothes who look and say nothing and think they know because they don't drink wine in ordinary bars. Evil men who walk about polluting the world. And he says, and everywhere I've gone, I've seen men who laugh and dance when they can. When they show up somewhere, they never ask where they are. When they take a trip, they ride on the backs of old mules. They drink wine if there is some, if not, cool water. These men are the good ones. who love and work and walk and dream, and on a day no different from any other, they lie down beneath the earth. Would you want it again? It's curious. I'm on this one now.
Let's get the chords then. Can you choose that other one that's heavy?
Yeah.
I have walked along many roads and open paths through brush. I've sailed on 100 seas and tied up on 100 shores. And everywhere I've gone, I've seen excursions of sadness. Angry and melancholy drunkards with black shadows. And academics in their offstage clothes who look and say nothing because they don't drink wine in ordinary bars. Evil men who walk about polluting the world. And academics in their offstage clothes, God. And everywhere I've gone, I've seen men who dance and sing when they can, and work the few inches of ground they have. They don't know how to hurry, not even on holidays. When they take a trip, they ride on the backs of old mules. They drink wine if there is some, if not, cool water. These men are the good ones who love and work and walk and dream. And on a day no different from any other, they lie down beneath the earth.
Nothing.
Okay.
You have one? No.
I'll take it.
Okay, you want
We
to?
got Stafford again. It's William Stafford. I think sounding a lot like Lao Tzu. It's called The Little Ways That Encourage Good Fortune. Wisdom is having things right in your life and knowing why. If you do not have things right in your life, you will be overwhelmed. You may be heroic, but you will not be wise. If you have things right in your life, but do not know why, you are just lucky. And you will not move in the little ways that encourage good fortune. The saddest are those not right in their lives who are acting to make things right for others. They act only from the self, and that self will never be right. No luck, no help, no wisdom. And hear it again? The little ways that encourage good fortune. And I love that Stafford makes this distinction between good fortune and being lucky. There are two different things. Wisdom is having things right in your life and knowing why. If you do not have things right in your life, you will be overwhelmed. You may be heroic, but you will not be wise. If you have things right in your life, but do not know why, you're just lucky. And you will not move in the little ways that encourage good fortune. The saddest are those not right in their lives who are acting to make things right for others. They act only from the self, and that self will never be right. No luck, no help, no wisdom.
This one is called The Race by Sharon Olds. So when I got to the airport, I rushed up to the desk, and they told me that the flight was cancelled. The doctors had said my father would not live through the night, and the flight was cancelled. A young man with a dark blonde moustache told me another airline had a non-stop leaving in 7 minutes. See that elevator over there? We'll go down to the first floor. See that elevator over there? We'll go down to the first floor. Make a right. You'll see a yellow bus. Get off at the second Pan Am terminal. I ran. I, who have no sense of direction, raced exactly where he told me, like a fish slipping upstream deftly against the flow of the river. I jumped off that bus with my heavy bags and I ran. The bags wagged with me from side to side as if to prove I was under the claim of the material. I ran up to the man with the white flower on his breast, who always looked to go, who always go to the end of the line. I said, "Help me." He looked at my ticket. He said, "Make a left and then a right, go up the moving stairs and then run." I raced up the moving stairs, 2 at a time. And at the top I saw the long, hollow corridor, and then I took a deep breath. I said goodbye to my body, goodbye to comfort. I used my legs and heart as if I would gladly use them up for this, to touch him again in this life. I ran, and the big, heavy, dark bags banged me, wheeled and swam around me like planets in wild orbits. I, who have seen pictures of women running down roads with their belongings tied in black scarves grasped in their fists, running under serious grey historical skies. I blessed the long legs he gave me. My strong heart I abandoned to its purpose. I ran to gate 17, and they were just lifting the thick white lozenge of the door to fit into the socket of the plane. Like the man who is not too rich, I turned to the side and slipped through the needle's eye, and then I walked down the aisle towards my father. The jet was full. People's hair was shining. They were smiling. The interior of the plane was filled with a mist of gold endorphin light. I wept as people weep when they enter heaven. We lifted up gently from one tip of the continent and did not stop until we sat down lightly on the other. I walked into his room and watched his chest rise slowly and sink again. All night I watched him breathe.
Cup, cup, cup.
Don't I get in trouble?
Oh,
No, Thomas Smith. Well, you know, I'm just paying respect to the moment, really. Whichever one you want.
I don't know. There I am. Okay. Well, thank you. I've been told that I could read between 3 and 5 poems, so I think I'll read 5. But I'll skip the full versions of the introductions. Okay. Thank you. All right. Here we are. Stand up straight. This is very demanding here. Well, thank you. I'm going to read some poems from a new book of mine called Foot of the Rainbow, and a few years ago I published one called Waking Before Dawn. It was a very dark book. This is kind of the sky clearing a little bit, and the difference between the books really is basically Bush and Obama. So, just so you know, I haven't shown my family this book yet. Several reasons for that, which you may hear. This is called Obama Listening. I wrote this after watching the inauguration on television. Obama Listening. He has the look of a man who has just come through a long winter, his eyes closed and chin raised in pleasantly warm sunlight. He soaks it up and lets it sink into himself, tries not to miss any intensity of the occasion. Concentration gives his face not quite handsomeness, but instead a beauty that the civil rights veterans in Selma might recognize, and the midnight partygoers in Kenya, their faces shining, and Lincoln, among his better angels, seriousness of an old soul communing with the ancestors. His chin-raised solemnity and absorption, in which we can read both surrender and resolve, remind me in ways I cannot fathom of the faces, neither youthful nor black, of my own grandfathers. Well, this is a poem called called Near the Bly Farm outside Madison, Minnesota. Last year in April, the University of Minnesota sponsored a symposium on Robert's life and work, and kind of as the dessert for that, sit on your ass for a couple of days festival, we all got on a bus and went out to Madison, Minnesota. And among the things that we did was we drove past the old Bly Farm. So these were some things that I saw on that trip, and one of the most amazing things was these 2 pair of deer. And some people saw them and some didn't, but I know I wasn't the only one. So this is called Near the Bly Farm outside Madison, Minnesota. The thickening buds need one good rain to leaf forth in the late April sun. Already the willow groves are misting yellow-green across the dusty fields. The old farmhouse, back among the trees and sheds, recedes into stillness. Where are the ideas, the talk, and high spirits now? They're not here anymore. They've gone on. I watched 2 deer running beside the mile-section dirt road, and then a second pair closely following. They move away from us. The friendship of James Wright and Robert Bly. The horizon here is so limitless, you can hear the wind of the end blowing. Don't worry about those old ones. They're all right. What they've accomplished is safe. Find that other silent legacy, all the things they have not said. It waits for us along the roads, glinting like the Minnesota River at Montevideo. There's a lot that isn't said in that poem, but I think you can hear it. I just read this one for the first time yesterday. It's called Hand of Jesus. I'm not a conventionally religious person. I dedicated this to an old friend of mine, a priest who died a couple of years ago, Father Ed Beutner, who was part of the Jesus seminar. I don't think he agreed with the theology, but he liked the poem. It's called Hand of Jesus. I can't stop thinking about that mural on 31st Street of Jesus' hand reaching out toward the world. Great pinkish fingers coming down from the sky, palm open as if offering a handshake. But what it really offers is the nail wound in the center of the palm, slitty and rose-colored like a small vagina, nestled there in its fleshly hollow, the saving femaleness of Jesus. That wound never heals. That's why it's here, floating above us in passing traffic. So that maybe on our cross of war and lies, we'll take a little of its suffering to moisten our sorely dry, scabbed hearts. And that's one of the reasons I haven't shown this book to my family. They're going to start burning my books along with the Quran. No comparison, though, intended. About 12 years ago, I think it was, a bunch of us in this room were involved in a trip, a mad, crazy all-night trip down to New Orleans for the first Louisiana Men's Conference. And I know some of those men are here, and I want to dedicate this poem to them. This is the fruit of that trip. It's called Southern Music. And it's really a celebration of the joining of black and white in the music of the South. And the name checks a lot of people whose music I love. Southern Music. Driving south all night, the car sinks through rainy Missouri towns without stoplights until dawn seeps up from the flat corner of Arkansas. The roads stretch out past rail crossings, water towers, mobile homes, the late winter fields insufficiently loved, lonely and wide open as a song by Iris Dement. An old brick sun breaks over Memphis, then puts its shades back on at Graceland. Are you running with me, Elvis? Pine woods of Senatobia shine with Sunday morning light. Gray cypress swamps flood the shoulder. Passionate spirits coil among drenched, snake-wrapped roots, unconsummated, waiting. Is that you, hell-hounded Robert Johnson? Is that you, homesick, tubercular Jimmy Rogers? Gratitude to the singers, black and white, this blood-bought land has wounded into beauty. I do not call your name in vain, John Hurt, Billy, Otis, Muddy, and you Nevilles, Carters, and Williams, Lucinda, Victoria, Hank. at a neon service outpost of the new generic poverty, a wrinkled black woman selling pecans calls me sweetheart. We are citizens of a possible country, the singers keep for us in their songs. February sun splendors through clouds on a blossoming hillside, maidenly as an old battlefield where a white horse is grazing. All right. Thank you. Thank you. One more. One more. Where is it? Yeah, let me see. I have to find that. I think that's in this book. Yeah, here we are. All right, I dedicate this to the young guys that are here and the old guys that are here and all the guys that are in between. I miss anybody? If there's any women here, it's dedicated to them too. It's called Feeling Old in Your 20s, and I dedicated it originally to an old English teacher of mine. I'd moved out of town and hadn't seen him for 15 years, and suddenly I meet him on the street, and holy shit, just in an instant, he's got old. It scared me. Wrote this poem. Now I'm 15 years down the line from this poem. What does that mean? Feeling old in your 20s. That retired teacher you saw puffing down the icy street with his bags of groceries, how did he become a stocking-capped duffer you recognized only in passing? Like a good Boy Scout, you offered to help. And like a good Irishman, he refused. Threw back his head and guffawed, eyes filmy, thin shoulders shaking. You remembered nightmares in your 20s of aging 2 or 3 decades, from which you'd waken, heart pounding but safe, relieved to be the age you were. Some people feel old in their 20s, their first gray hair, a tombstone. But time weakens their grip on the gold coin of youth, which rolls away one day unnoticed. We have other coins. Those dreams are for making us less afraid of what we're already living and of our old teacher up ahead laughing. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Good. Thank you.
Very cute.
Brothers.